Hey Cancer, it's Empress Rose here, finally redoing your reading. Just had some time issues there. So cutting the deck. Overall for the reading, Three of Wands, looking to the future, hopeful, expectant. This is having quite a bit of faith in the future, being very expectant, that your ships are going to come in. We don't even need to, these ones, the wands, we have one wand in our hand and we have the other two that we're expecting sort of the universe to take care of, or there's a sense of just genuine faith in the universe to provide for you, to bring things in without you struggling or fighting too hard. There's a sense of faith in the future. We have the dawn, we have, the dawn always comes. That's the level of faith that the Three of Wands to me talks about, is like the dawn always comes, the tide always comes in. There are things that are going to happen and you have a lot of faith in them. So much faith that you might not even recognize it as faith. So pause. And then over on Vimeo, I have the reading, when I first did this recording, the romance love reading was fine. The audio was there. So that's still over on Vimeo. There should be a link in the description box. If you have any trouble with that, email me directly at empressrose1111@gmail.com. So we'll go on with the rest of this reading. Past, present, inner landscape, what's at issue, environment, to-do list, possible outcome. Oh, okay, so cups, pentacles, cups and pentacles here. This could be about work, this could be about relationships, or maybe even both, who knows. So in the recent past, Seven of Pentacles, waiting impatiently, like, okay, I did that, now where are the results? So you did something and you've waited a long time for results or to hear back or something like that. There's like seeds have been planted, tended to, grown, worked over, fussed over, and now we're sitting here in this, we have been sitting in a way, in a standing expectantly looking at these, the fruits of our labors. Are they going to ripen? Is it worth? The Seven of Pentacles always talks to me about a question. It's like there's expectation, there's waiting and waiting to hear back on something, to see the results, the fruits of your labors. There's a lot of waiting, but there's also always like a little bit of a question. In with that patience is a little bit of impatience, or a little bit of like, should I stay or move on? Is it time? Do I continue to go down this path, or do I continue to wait for the results here, or do I move on? And that's one of the hardest sort of, and that's a hard decision to make, right? When to fish and when to cut bait, when to hold them and when to fold them. That's the when to hold them and when to fold them card. And it can be really hard because a lot of things do take a lot of time and a lot of patience. And without that, we aren't going to get to where we want to go. But there's also a certain sense where, like, if something's never going to bear fruit, sitting around staring at it and waiting patiently isn't going to help. So that's always like a difficult place to be, and a difficult choice and decision is, do we continue putting the work in, being patient and waiting for these results, trusting this process, or do we bail and go a different route? This can sometimes be helped by taking a step back and looking overall at, what is your goal? Like, to thrive in creative work. Okay, well, this avenue isn't working. Maybe another avenue would work. So that can help you make that decision of whether you want to keep going down a certain path or whether you want to switch to another track or something like that. So, but there was sort of, you have been in a place of like waiting expectantly for some sort of result, some sort of reply, some sort of something like that. But in your current situation, we have Five of Cups. Regrets. Maybe you're regretting. Maybe you're like, oh, did I not water those seeds enough? Maybe I didn't water them enough. Maybe I didn't test the soil. Maybe I didn't fertilize them properly. Maybe I over-fertilized them. There might be a sense of like wanting to go back and think about what you did. I mean, regret isn't great. We can sometimes like make a decision to not regret our decisions, but it can also be a great teacher of like, you know what, I don't think I'm going to do that again. Or, you know what, next time I'm going to, you know, memorize the lines before I go in and audition for something. I'm going to make sure I'm going to prepare more. I'm going to prepare better. But there, you could be in a place of regret or grief. Perhaps you did finally hear back and you didn't get what you've been working so hard for, but there is a sense of regret. So part of this is just looking at what you don't have yet, looking at what hasn't come to fruition. There are a lot of positives in the situation. That's what this card says. There are positives in the situation. And when you're ready to look at those positives, when you're ready to look at what is going right, when you're ready to look at the resources you do have, they're right there. We don't want to rush an emotional process, but at the same time, there's a sense of, you know, not wanting to stay in a place. But oftentimes these places are unpleasant, of regret and mourning and sadness and grief. So these places are uncomfortable for a reason. It's so that we don't stay there. They're places we want to travel through, but not places we want to like dig in and have a foundation with. So you are traveling, hopefully traveling through that place and not like setting up camp with the intent to build a whole town there. There is a sense of like sort of being isolated, being away from something. But there is a path over, there's a path through this. There is a way to get towards what you want, but there's just a moment here where you're regretting maybe the path that you did take, what you did try. Maybe you took on too much, right, instead of like you tried to carry 5 cups instead of 4, and then you, instead of like arriving at your destination with 4 cups, you arrive with 2 because you dropped 3 because you tried to do too much or took on too much. So there's a sense of putting work into something and kind of having some regrets now, worried about or some grief about what hasn't come up, that kind of thing. In your current situation, we have 7 of Cups. So this one comes in really differently. It's like sort of internally looking at your inner demons. Your 7 of Cups is typically about the heart and the head sort of battling to make a choice, making decisions, having a lot of options, trying to guess at what's going to make you happy. That could be a lot of what the energy that you're in, trying to make some good guesses as to what's going to make you happy. But this one often talks about like really starting to see the truth of sort of something that's within you, some sort of like inner demon or inner harasser, your inner harasser, and what's going on inside. So it's a little bit of like maybe something that's been in your subconscious coming up. What's interesting too here is we have the city off in the distance. So it's a card of like separation, which to me is like it's like a moment. It's not like your whole life is engulfed in this. It's not like your whole path. It's like you've taken sort of a weekend away, or you've taken a moment away from something. You're not in the thick of it. This isn't your day-to-day life. These are moments that are sort of delineated. So we have 5 of Cups as sort of grief, regret. 7 of Cups, maybe looking at what you regret, maybe looking at you know, the possibility that in some situations you might be your own worst enemy. Looking at your inner demons and sort of the things that harass you and the things that prevent you from living life to the fullest, things that you know, trying to present a certain thing to the world, but inside something else is going on. And so this is your inner landscape. And what I find really funny is, or really interesting, is that this little lizard thing, it plays out like an inner demon here. And it could wreak a lot of emotional havoc. So you might be taking a moment to kind of do a deep dive within yourself and look at, you know, your own bad habits or your own resistance to, you know, what you're meant to be doing, and how to live your fullest life. So there's something that you're seeing a lot more clearly inside you that can actually like be a little bit detrimental to you living your fullest life. And we all have those things, so it's not unusual to look inside and find them. There's just like moments, we don't need to be doing it every day, but you know, there are times when and it looks like this waiting period, or this having put work into something and not having the results, it might be triggering some sort of like, did I fill out the application too hastily? Are there, what do I, did I quit too soon? Have I stayed too long? I don't know. Everyone's got their own very unique inner demons. So I'm going to stop guessing what they might be. So what we have at issue is Two of Swords reverse. Coming out of denial about something, starting to allow yourself to see something or talk about something that you didn't want to before. And this whole inner demon thing, coming out of denial, it does seem really internal, and like there's something you're realizing possibly about yourself, about your path, about the way you interact with the world, about the way you interact with your dreams, about the way you interact with your future. That might be self-destructive. And so Two of Swords in reverse to me is coming out of denial, starting to talk about something that we've been silent about, starting to try to communicate more about something. The energy's becoming unblocked, and it could be like, we have to keep the emotional energy flowing through our bodies, not just our emotional self, but our physical self too. And there's actually a lot of interesting work by Alexander Lowen about freeing up our bodies to be able to flow the energy, spiritual, emotional energy through them. And so Five of Cups to me looks like we're in a really good emotional flow. So that could be one of the positives we're looking at here. We may be experiencing regret, but at least we're not suppressing something anymore. We're not refusing to look at, what's gone wrong, or refusing to look at our own behaviors, or refusing to look at our own situation. So there's a sense of like, this is flowing again. And the Five of Cups, this one always reminds me of like, this water fell out, these cups spilled, but water is meant to flow, not meant to be clung to. Just like our emotions are meant to flow, not meant to be clung to. And so that's why overall I see this as a fairly healthy card as far as emotional flow and allowing, a grief process to flow through us, because these emotions are meant to flow. And anytime we're trying to block or suppress them, then out of fears and intellectualizing our emotions, which is fine to like come to an understanding of them and figure out where they're coming from and what's going on. But as far as like just staying there, we also have to let these feelings actually flow, the disappointments and regrets. I don't like the phrase no regrets. I understand it and understand the overall idea of like behaving in a way that you're not going to regret, but also just refusing to like stay there. But also it's a great place of learning, and just in general with emotions, it's always better to let them flow than to like just seal them up in like steel and have them be sort of like blockages in our body. So we are letting something flow that we haven't let flow before. And that's actually very important, because when we suppress one emotion, we suppress all of them. So your capacity for joy can often be like dampened by your refusal to grieve or your refusal to experience sadness or regret. So allowing all of it to flow. And that's what I'm seeing here is like a nice, this doesn't look very nice, but as long as we pass through this land, as long as we flow, right? We've got a river back here. We've got a bridge. We can get over this. It's not insurmountable. We can get over it, but I would encourage you not to like force it, but to actually feel the whole thing and let the flow. This is blockage, but now in reversal, we've got flow coming in here. So especially if you've like suppress something, it might feel overwhelming and scary, but I'm pretty sure no one's died of like crying too hard or experiencing, right? The emotions feel very overwhelming sometimes, but my advice would be to let them flow. So in your environment, Five of Swords, someone else is making some really difficult decisions that might be cutting you out. That might be painful to you. This could be like if you've put in like an application or something, this employer is making difficult decisions. They have to decide one person. They can't hire everybody, or they can't go with everyone. So they are making some difficult decisions that like literally no one's going to be happy with. Like for one, because no one actually does really love, I mean, I love my jobs, but also like I'd rather be doing something else sometimes. So, I mean, that's why they have to pay us, right? So, so this is about someone making some difficult decisions where, like, really, there's not a win-win outcome. Not everybody can get what they want here. There's not like a good way to like compromise or make a decision where everybody gets what they want. So someone in your environment, a person, a lover, a friend, a family member, somebody here is making difficult choices that no one's actually, this is like this is hard for everybody. Everybody loses. Even the person that wins doesn't actually win, right? All that much. They win, but they lose their friends. So there's someone that's having to make some decisions that are really difficult. This is not you. This is around you. Just hard calls. Even the person that, even if somebody wins, like if you put in work to something, this could be someone like choosing to not pay you and now you regret working with them. But this could be just a decision maybe not going in your favor, or, and this is where this Five of Cups, this regret and this like looking back on maybe some of our inner processes and starting to kind of come out of denial. This decision may have triggered all of that. Maybe you put a lot of work into something and it still didn't go your way. So now you're, and that's not a sign to quit necessarily. That's just raising questions about your faith in your future, right? And so your faith in your future may actually be shaking. I mean, this is underlying for the reading. So what we're talking about is faith in the future, faith in the direction that you want to go, and believing in that. So your to-do list is the Well. So this is the only deck that actually has this card, which is annoying in some ways because it's always like, wow, what do I do with this card? Where did this come from? But this is returning to source, returning to some sort of, returning to plant the seeds again, plant new seeds now. Returning to, returning to some sort of source, right? She's at the well. She's like got the water to water the seeds. This is between, to me, they have this as card 22, but this is after the world, after a completion. So something's completed, something's done. It may not have gone your way. It may have been quite triggering for you. So something's done and completed. But before the new adventure begins, there's like sort of some refresh, maybe, go back and refresh your methods, your, the way you do something, like going back to, I'd say almost before this, where you started waiting, like going back to the drawing board. It could go back to a resource from your past. Tapping a resource from your past. It could, she's definitely looking at the past. And there is a sense, but she's also looking to the future. There is a sense of, though, like returning to the source is the Well. Like that's where we go for renewal. So renewing something, finding renewal, inner renewal, spiritual renewal, emotional renewal. And it could even be methodology renewal, like go back to the drawing board. Go back to, your notes or something of, like you got an assignment, you worked really hard on it, they didn't like it, it was rejected. So go back to your notes, go back to your methodologies, review something, go back to your teacher, get more clarification, like in preparation for the next thing, so that the next thing is different. There is a sense of needing to find some sort of renewal, and it might be intellectual renewal and emotional renewal, but wanting to go back to some sort of source. And maybe the original source, or maybe the it is a return to something, and it's the process of returning to something that fulfills you, feeds you, waters you, hydrates you. Stay hydrated. Going back to the well, the source. And this could also be like a spiritual practice, and maybe a spiritual practice that you used to do. Returning to that might be very helpful in this situation, especially for like coming out of denial and having some realizations or some understandings. It could also be like go back to, whatever feels like it was a rejection, go back to that, circle back around to something here. But there could be a sense of like, well, I don't know if these seeds are ever going to come up. So start planting a different garden instead of standing around and waiting and watching on this. Go do something else or start a new project and let that one sort of, maybe that one needs to simmer on the back burner. Maybe the world's not ready for this project yet. So maybe you can go back and start something new. So the well is about renewal. And I like it too because we all have these like disastrous cups here. You know, some our least favorite cups are showing up here. Emotional. We've got spillage here, so the well is going to refill your cup. So maybe you can find encouragement somewhere. Maybe in a past spiritual practice, a past relationship, a past friendship, past notes, some sort of renewal. But that's where you're just, I think, like the well isn't to me like a big seeking, a big like searching. It's like, you know where the well is. That's the bottom line here. You know where the well is. You know where to go back to. You know exactly where to go back to. It's not a guess. It's not like there's no quest here. There's just a return to home base or a return to your docking station to recharge. And maybe come back with more ideas or something like that. So, and then possible outcome is 8 of Pentacles. I love this because we start off with 7 of Pentacles, waiting, waiting, waiting. All of this waiting, putting in some work and waiting has you sort of questioning yourself, is opening up some sort of inner process for you, where this is like this, having put work into something and not being sure and waiting to hear back or waiting for the results to come in has used like so much in your head, but it's actually really healthy for you because you're like flowing through something. You're realizing some of your inner demons, some of the ways in which maybe you messed up, and some, as you're waiting for, I mean, this could be a relationship reading where you thought this was going somewhere. You reached out to someone, not hearing back from them has you totally in your feelings and sort of rethinking some things. And I think that this is really super healthy for you. This is exactly where you need to be, is sort of rethinking some things and letting your emotions and fears, not indulging in them, but letting them flow through you with the understanding that there's a renewal afoot. Your own personal renewal is afoot. And this other person's making some hard decisions. They're in a decision-making mode. And so then what you have here is you have work, engaging work coming up here. There will be, and maybe this is just working on yourself primarily. Maybe this foundation has been shaken enough that you're going to be putting in work. But this tends to be, this 8 of Pentacles tends to be like actual work, like getting to work, focusing on your work, focusing on enjoying your work, being absorbed by your work. Again, we have you sort of outside the city having a period of time. That's really interesting. I have not noticed how this deck does that. Other decks have different ways of doing it, but this sort of period of time where you are just incredibly focused on your work. It might be a little repetitious, it might be, but there's some pride in your work. And there's like a time of just very much being work. You know, normally we talk about work-life balance and we want everything, but this is like just really focused on your work. There's a time of renewal, of realization, maybe, and then there's sort of like, and then just focus on your work then. And it's 7, and then we go to the 8. We started the 7 and we ended the 8. And it's like the 7, it's almost like you stopped because you thought you were done. And you were like, okay, now what? And this is like, well, there's actually more. So find your renewal, go through your grief process, find your renewal. And once you feel ready, there's actually more work to be done. You weren't actually done before. You thought you were done. You thought you were finished waiting for the results, but there's actually more work to be done. But you do need to go through some sort of emotional process. All right, let us talk about these synchronicity cards. They might add more to the possibility, but more work needs to be done, or, you know, you need to get back to work after a little bit of a setback. And that setback may have just been in your own mind with your own expectations, that you'd be done by now. Oh, okay. We have Raven Spirit Truth. So ravens, very intelligent birds. This is, I think this is about seeing the truth, seeing some sort of inner truth, seeing some sort of disappointing truth. It might even be disappointment in yourself, but it might also be this disappointment that may be coming in here. But there's more work required, is basically, you weren't quite done. You thought you were done here, and you thought you were going to like sit back and wait for the results to come in. This is like, actually not. Or this could also be like, go back to some sort of original source or original reference or original something, and then you get to work again. But so truth, this could be looking at some sort of inner truth, not shying from the truth and not shying away from speaking your truth, which is what this is. This is like not speaking the truth, knowing something and not talking about it, not saying anything about it, and maybe even not internally acknowledging it. And this is about speaking your truth and being clear about your truth and not pretending, not ignoring something. This can often be about ignoring an issue, ignoring a problem, ignoring a person. This is about, not talking, just forget about it, don't talk, don't communicate, don't reach out. This is like, it's time to speak your truth. It may be time to reach out. It may be time to communicate, but also pay attention to ravens and sort of red clothing too. Then we have Spirit Guardian of Winter Retreat. This is exactly what this looks like to me. The winter time, the retreat, the renewal. We have a little cabin in the woods here. That might be important. We also have a crystal ball, seeing in the future, some sort of rest, maybe a weekend away or something like that. Spirit Guardian of Winter Retreat. So that's what that well is to me, is like some sort of, it's winter time. It's in like the coziest way possible. We all have that, like, winter is coming, and this is like, but cozy is coming. Winter, cozy coming. Taking care of yourself. And that's the well here. There's some sort of silence and self-care and quietness. And maybe it's for the purpose of this self-reflection, but that's how you're going to take care of yourself. Willow Spirit, flexibility. So maybe you thought, no, I put the work in and now I get the reward. But this is like, yeah, you're going to need to be a little bit flexible. Also, we have willows here. So willows might remind you of something. But they are very like flexible, and maybe like in order to get back to work, or in order to do the work that you need to do, you need to sort of like be a little flexible, maybe on your timeline, be flexible with yourself, having some flexibility, if adjustments are required, adjusting, wanting to be flexible and not rigid. But this is a lot of what's going on here, is this flexibility, this flow. Willows, weeping willows, if there's a grief process, let yourself flow through that. Let yourself move through that. All right, and then we had 2 prayers come out. We have Tranquil Turtle. I love this, especially with the well here, the watery elements here. Also this willow tree. Willows are water seekers. They actually seek out water, which is really interesting because we're talking about emotions and allowing emotions, but there might be a sense in which you want to seek out some sort of buried emotions or refused emotions. So commitment, serenity, spirit of the great mother goddess, strengthen my connection to the earth. Which is really interesting because turtles, I guess they're land and water. So they're emotional. Well, and all we have here is cups and pentacles. Cups and dirt, water and dirt. And we have the turtle, which is both a land animal and a water animal. So grounded, emotional, grounded emotions. So connection to the earth. And I'd say like connection to work, to money, to all of that stuff. And then we have the noble narwhal. A little unicorn here, a little unicorn, emotional unicorn. Resilience, creativity, uniqueness. Mystic unicorn of the sea, endow me with the gift of individuality. Embracing your own unique journey. It's not going to be like anybody else's. And you know what? That's what's so magical about a one-horned creature is, most of the rest of them have 2 horns. If you're going to have horns, you usually have 2. This one's just got the one right in the center. It's like a really intense third eye, intuition, a piercing intuition. But I like this resilience, right? Because we were waiting for something, crumbling a little bit as we wait. There's more work. More work is coming, but we need to be sort of resilient, and not resilient in a way where we avoid our emotions or we just plow through, but resilient in a way where we can allow these emotions to flow through us, work with them, work with realizations and understandings and truths we might be uncovering about ourselves, and continuing on with our work even after this sort of emotional upset and emotional reset is what I want to say. So I hope that was helpful for you, Cancer. Thank you so much for joining me here. Feel free to hop over to Vimeo if you want. Otherwise, we'll talk later, and thanks for your patience in this, everything that, all the little problems and issues that went wrong with this reading to get it to you here, but here we are. Ciao.